We have the Minister's amendments. The question then is that the Minister's amendments set out on SOP 115 be agreed to. Those of that opinion will say aye. Aye. Contrary will say no. The ayes have it. The question now is that Part 2 as amended stand part.
Sorry, can you just stop for a second?
Just one moment. Stand part. Those of that opinion will say aye. Aye. Contrary will say no. The ayes have it. Members, we now move to Part 3. The question is that Part 3 debate on clauses 41 to 48 stand part.
Mr. Chairman.
The Honourable Darren Hughes.
Very keen, I say to the Chief Government Whip. It's an excellent bill, and well, that's right. The opposition feels as though not only does it have to explain its difficulties with the bill, or the questions it's got about the bill, we've also then got to explain what the bill actually does, back to the people who have been tuning in for the last 2 weeks on Parliament TV to only see the green screen and the music playing saying we'll be back on the 20th of July. They've tuned in tonight and they wouldn't know from the government what this bill is about, even though just a few months ago Bill English said this was such an important bill for the government's economic program. But we know on this day of all days how quickly the government is keen to abandon its long-held principles, as it did today with the Schedule 4 mining, which just trickled and trickled and trickled and trickled right the way through. Well, Mr. English says it upset us. No, we agreed with it because our principles hadn't changed on it. The only thing that's galling about it is where there's a back down purely for political reasons, dressed up as being, oh no, it's okay, we found a letter from the Mayor of Northland who said, come and have a look around here and see what you can find. And this becomes, oh well, we'll shift the entire government economic policy there. But sir, those issues are actually outside Part 3. Yep. And so I want to turn my mind to the issues that will be in there, other than to say that so far we've debated and passed Part 1 with amendments, and then passed as amended, and we've done the same to Part 2. Here we are in Part 3, which there's going to be agreement on as well. It must be such a long time that Mr. English has united so many people around him. I would have thought he'd be up every 5 minutes to speak about it, to sort of bask in some sort of glory, but the penance he is still doing for his transgressions of earlier times obviously is weighing too heavily on him to be able to get himself out of the chair tonight. So the changes here to the New Zealand Railways Corporation are reasonably minor, but there are a couple of points I wanted to make to the Minister. And it's really a drafting thing, I suspect, but he may be able to correct me. Section 43(2) refers to an amendment to omit the words Minister of Railways and substitute in each case Minister, and reason for that pretty obvious. There was a time in New Zealand government when there was always a Minister of Railways. I suspect the last Minister of Railways might have been the Honourable Richard Prebble, who were having a portfolio named like that. But enough of that, as my colleagues look at me askew. And so they've changed that, so it's just a generic minister. It doesn't say Minister of Transport, it just says Minister, and then that will be presumably whoever the minister designated by the Prime Minister to have responsibility for rail matters will be. That's all fine. Then you come down to 44(2) and inserting a new subsection, substituting the existing subsection and putting in the Minister and the Minister of Finance may jointly at any time and entirely at their discretion, slightly dangerous, remove any director from office. Of course, I'm not sure whether that was specifically put in there as a form of utu, so that Mr. English could seek revenge on the Right Honourable Jim Bolger, who we all know Mr. English's famous temper was not pleased at all when Mr. Bolger decided to serve New Zealand as chairman of Kiwi Rail, so that could have been put in there entirely for that reason. That's actually not the point I wanted to raise. The point is why we're specifically naming the Minister of Finance, because if the bill is trying to get away from naming a portfolio minister in 43(3), 43(2) and 44(3), why it is in 44(2)(6) we're specifying a portfolio minister. And this is not some esoteric point, this is an important point, because we went through a period in New Zealand where we had both a Minister of Finance and a Treasurer. where the senior portfolio minister in the economic area was called the Treasurer. That was another old Tory deal to get power, but most of them won't know about that. Oh no, that's not true. That's not correct. When was that? He was not the Treasurer? Poor old David Bennett. I shouldn't have even responded to his interjection because, as always, it turned out to be about absolutely nothing. It's good. Sorry? The Minister of Finance spoke. I'm keen to know what he had to say. Oh, he's changed his mind now. He was using the open mic, which is very, very bad. But I don't mind if that is at least some way of eliciting information. But when the National Party stayed we went for the New Zealand First and had a position of Treasurer, then that became the senior portfolio minister in the economic area. And in fact, this minister, Part 3, Mr Chairman, Part 3, Clause 44, if Mr Tremaine can mind himself to read it, Mr English himself knows about this because he has been both Minister of Finance and Treasurer at a time in which both portfolios existed. In fact, of course, he was Minister of Finance the last time superannuation was cut in New Zealand was when Mr English was Minister of Finance, and I have no doubt that given the chance he would do that again. But I'd like to know why the portfolio is named, given that if there is a coalition deal in the future, this may easily happen, and there was a portfolio treasurer created again, would that require a new piece of legislation to amend this? And if the whole infrastructure bill, which the Minister was formerly so proud, was such an important thing to bring together because there'd been confusion, why he would allow that confusion to take place, why that wouldn't say the Minister and the shareholding Minister, for example, could be a way of getting around that. So perhaps if the Minister of Finance could, the Minister of Infrastructure this evening could take up that point, because it seems to me that is something that could easily be addressed if he could change that to make it in a position so that we weren't going to be holding ourselves up. The other point, sir, is almost the point that's not in Part 3, or not the clauses that should be in Part 3 with respect to rail, given that this is an infrastructure bill. When the government has had the opportunity with Kiwi Rail to be able to substantially build locomotives in New Zealand for within the $500 million budget that the government set aside for the Auckland rolling stock, that the government put up $500 million just as the previous government had, and the quotes came, the economic study was done that came in that said that those things could be built using New Zealand infrastructure, producing and manufacturing New Zealand infrastructure in a way that would have actually assisted our country and kept the money that has been put aside for that in our country at the workshops at Woburn and the Hutt Valley out here at Wellington and at Hillside in Dunedin. And it seems to me to bring in an infrastructure bill that excludes
Sorry to interrupt the honourable member, but the time has come for me to report progress.
Yeah.
Mr Chairman.
Mr Speaker, the Committee on the Infrastructure Bill reports progress. Mr Speaker, I move that the report be adopted.
The question is that the report be adopted. Those who are of that opinion will say aye. Aye. The contrary opinion will say no. The ayes have it. This bill is set down for further consideration in the next sitting day. Coming close to 10 o'clock, this debate is interrupted. This debate is interrupted and the bill is set down for resumption next sitting day. The House stands adjourned until 2 p.m. tomorrow. Tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, o Mario.